A pleasant day to all. Welcome to the fourth wave of free webinar session sponsored by Asia Pacific Association of Educators Training Institute, or APAETI. At this time, let me give my greatest compliment to the brilliant and beautiful CEO of APAETI, Dr. Raquel D. Bernabe, one of the most approachable and humble speaker I have known. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be one of the speakers of this fourth wave free webinar session. It is a great privilege for me to have this international speakership experience. And of course, to all the participants who are watching and listening in their respective places of works, this is a great chance for you to start collecting international certificates. By the way, let me introduce to you myself. I am Evelyn P, Pidut, Teacher 3 of Mota Elementary School of Casibu West District from the Schools Division of Nueva Vizcaya. I have gained my experiences in speakership in the different invitational school or campus journalism in elementary and secondary, inside and outside our district, and chosen as a speaker to other relevant topics. But my experience today is a nervous beating on my part since this is an international sponsored webinar. I am glad that I am a part and member of this prestigious organization. Thank you, APAETI. I am a cum laude graduate in Nueva Vizcaya State University, Bambang Campus in 2013 and finished my master's degree major in educational administration on June 2020, and currently I am taking my doctorate degree at the same university. Well, I have learned that being a teacher never stops after being hired by a school or earn the first salary, because being a teacher is learning how you will grow professionally and intellectually. That is why I want myself to engage in different activities, trainings, and workshops that could help me boost my confidence and train me to be a more productive, effective, and efficient teacher. So, to all the participants who are with us in this session, I would like to congratulate you because you too want to learn more. So I hope I could help you more with our topic today. But before we start our webinar, everyone should be registered in APAETI using the link provided. Listen, like, share, and subscribe. Watch and evaluate the webinar, and afterwards you will get an e-certificate. So remember our rules. You have to register, like, listen, subscribe, and share the APAETI YouTube channels or YouTube webinar sessions or topics. So our objectives: to understand the different learning modality and to develop strategies and approaches that could be used in the chosen learning delivery modality. Nowadays, fellow teachers or educators, everyone is worried of the outbreak of coronavirus disease or COVID-19. It triggered everyone that made the government to declare for public health emergency, since the cases of this virus is rising across the country and to other places around the world. However, this pandemic continues to spread, so it is important that all agencies, including the school communities, to take action in preventing from virus transmission and decrease the occurrence and upkeep of control measures. We all know that this pandemic stopped all the activities that we used to perform before. So the Department of Education has developed its continuity plan to continue empowering the youth through quality education. Today, I would like to discuss to you the different learning delivery modalities that a teacher should embrace to combat COVID-19 and continue on the teaching and learning process. Every school must assure to give their constituents the protection they need, especially nowadays. Precautionary measures is necessary to prevent transmission of virus, and it is important to remember that despite all the COVID-19 maladies, education must continue. So today we are going to know and learn more of the different learning modalities that we use as alternative learning delivery. There are different learning delivery modalities that can be used by the school to continue education to learners. The Department of Education, through its Learning Continuity Plan, can help the design of the best learning delivery modality that can be used by the school after the survey conducted, depending on the COVID-19 restrictions and the particular context of the learners in the school or in their locality. Well, school opening will not necessarily mean traditional face-to-face learning in the classroom. The physical opening will depend on the risk severity grading or classification of a certain community pursuant to guidelines from DOH, IATF, for the management of emerging infectious diseases in the Philippines, and of course of the Office of the President, or OP. Well, we are always being asked by parents on how we are going to teach the learners nowadays, right? Some may be asking, do we need to close schools and go for another learning delivery modality? Or a question that asks, can we just stop opening the school year and pursue next year? The big question to us educators is, are we ready to face and embrace the new normal setting of the school? Okay, so here we are. Let's start. Let us learn and understand the different learning delivery modalities that can we use or we can use to continue education to all the learners. Education must continue, so we the teachers must continue to educate learners. Though this crisis because of the pandemic continues, no one could say when will this pandemic stop, right? So we must always be motivated by a quote from Tao Zhan, director of UNESCO IITE, which is, keep learning, together we are on the move. We can do this for the youth, for the nation. So let us embrace the different learning modalities or learning delivery modalities as we teachers combat COVID-19. So what are the frequently asked questions on DepEd learning delivery modalities or to private learning delivery modalities this school year 2020-2021? So first, what is traditional face-to-face learning? What is distance learning? What is blended learning? And what is homeschooling? So there are 4 different types of learning delivery modalities. So first is face-to-face learning. Second is blended learning. Third is homeschooling. And the fourth one is distance learning. So let's talk first about the traditional face-to-face learning. So you could see in the picture that the teacher and the learner are both physically appear or present. So traditional face-to-face learning, this refers to a learning delivery modality where the students and the teacher are both physically present in classroom. And there are opportunities for active engagement, immediate feedback, and social-emotional development of learners. So in face-to-face option, fellow educators, it may also be feasible in very low-risk areas such as the geographically isolated, disadvantaged, and conflict-affected, or the GIDCA, with no history of affection and very low and easily monitored external contacts, proper risk assessment, and must adhere to every health protocols in the place. Whereas fellow educators, there is no possibility that we are going to use the face-to-face or traditional face-to-face learning modality because of the high risk of pandemic or high risk cases of this pandemic. However, there are learners with disabilities whose conditions require face-to-face instruction. This will be the subject of further discussion with the Secretary of DepEd, Madam Briones, together with the partners and the parents as well. So in this type of face-to-face learning modality, there are approaches or strategies that could be used. So first is the MISOSA, or modified in school or out of school approach, the impact, the OHSP, the project is the face-to-face and modular learning, and community-based instruction, or the ALS, or alternative learning system. Well, as COVID-19 getting higher of its cases, so we must also be more responsible in following the health protocols that the Department of Health imposed, so all will be safe. Nowadays, face-to-face learning, as I mentioned a while back, is not possible to be used since we want to prevent the transmission of virus. So the second type of learning delivery modality is the distance learning. So distance learning refers to a learning delivery modality where learning takes place between the teacher and the learners who are geographically remote from each other during the instruction. So there are three types of this learning modality. First is the modular distance learning, or the MDL. Second is the online distance learning, or ODL. And the third is the television or radio-based instruction or learning. So let us discuss about modular distance learning. So modular distance learning involves individualized instruction that allows learners to use self-learning modules, or SLMS, in print or digital format or electronic copy, and other learning resources like LMs or learning materials, TB or textbooks, activity sheets, study guides, and other materials. Well, in modular distance learning, the teacher takes the responsibility of monitoring the progress of the learners. The learners may ask assistance from the teacher via email, telephone, text messaging, instant messaging, etc., or others. Where possible, the teacher shall do home visitation to learners needing remediation or assistance, or any member of the family or other stakeholder in the community needs to serve as para-teachers, or what we call nowadays as the knowledge bearers. So in modular distance learning, there are suggested platforms or resources or mechanisms that could be used. First is the use of learning resource materials or modules in multimedia like the slides, video, and audio files. Next is the digital packets, which is the learning materials. Next is the use of e-learning materials and the use of computer-based learning resources. So again, fellow educators, in this type of learning is in the form of individualized instruction that allows learners to use the SLMS in print or digital format or electronic copy, which is applicable to the context of the learner, and other learning resources like the LMs, textbooks, and other materials to be used in learning. So a learner could source out also from the DepEd portals or DepEd Commons or LR portals. So the second type of distance learning is the online distance learning. So in online distance learning, it features the teacher as facilitator, engaging learners' active participation through the use of internet. It is used to facilitate learner-teacher and peer-to-peer communication in an online process. Online learning allows live synchronous instruction. But mind you, fellow educators, that when we are going to use the online learning, we are going to have the strong or fast internet connection. Otherwise, it will be a poor discussion of our instruction. It is more interactive, or this is more interactive than the other types of distance learning. The learners may download materials from the internet, complete and submit assignments online, attend webinars and virtual classes, and this practice effectively by using a learning management system or related technologies. The DepEd Commons and LR portal will fall in this category. So there are suggested platforms or resources or mechanisms that could be used in online distance learning, like the use of virtual classrooms. Example is the Google Classroom, Edmodo, and Schoology, and the use of web enhanced learning activities, free access to OERs, access to LR portals, and access to DepEd Commons. Okay, so the third type of the online distance learning or the modular distance learning or distance learning, as I should say, is the TV radio based learning or instruction. So in this type of learning, it utilizes SLMS converted to video lessons for television-based instruction and self-learning modules converted to radio script for radio-based instruction. So in this type of distance learning modality, this is most viable for independent learners and learners supported by assistants. Any member of the family or a stakeholder in the community need to give a supervision when this type of learning is going to be used or is to be used. So there are suggested platforms or resources or mechanisms that could be used in the RBI or TVI or radio-based and television-based instruction. So you should have a free access and observance of IPR to some of the educational sites or resources like the television and radio-based instruction or script, modules, learning materials, and other sources of learning. Okay, so let's again discuss on the blended learning. So what is blended learning? So blended learning refers to a learning delivery modality that combines face-to-face with any of the mix of online distance learning, modular distance learning, and TV or RB-based instruction. It limits face-to-face learning and ensure social distancing and decrease the volume of people outside home and at any given time. So there are suggested platforms or resources and mechanisms that could be used in blended learning, such as the use of print or non-print learning materials as not limited to the following, like modules, worksheets, activity sheets, and the use of gadgets for kinder to grade 3 SPED learners, as I mentioned on my first description, that there is a restriction regarding to learners who have difficulties or who are considered as special learners. And last of the different learning modality is the homeschooling. So what is a homeschooling? So this is an alternative delivery mode or ADM that aims to provide learners with access to quality basic education through home-based environment to be facilitated by qualified environment and facilitated by parents, guardians, or tutors who have undergone relevant training. Well, in this type of learning modality, fellow educators, this allows families to educate according to their personal faith, philosophy, and values, and to adjust learning schedules around family schedules and circumstances. However, there remain several issues in its implementation, including the supervision of licensed teachers and alignments with the curriculum. Thus, this modality will be the subject of a later DepEd issuance before its expansion. So there are suggested platforms or resources or mechanisms to be used in homeschooling, such as the use of print materials or learning resources, the modules, worksheets, activity sheets, and others, and the use of digital packets or learning materials. So let us always be ready to answer frequently asked questions on depth and learning delivery modalities for this school year 2020-2021. So we should always remember that in defining the different learning modality, we should be sure of its uses and its approaches to be used, or strategies. So again, what is distance learning? So in distance learning delivery modality, learning takes place between the teacher and learners who are geographically remote from each other during instruction. So in this type of learning modality, there are three types that could be used, like the modular distance learning that uses the self-learning modules in print or digital format or electronic copy, whichever is applicable to or in the school or in the context of the learner, and other learning resources like LMs, textbooks, activity sheets, study guides, LAS or learning activity sheets, and other study materials. So in online distance learning, this also facilitates learning and engaging learners' active participation, but it uses various technologies which are accessed through the internet, while they are geographically, or the teacher and the learner are geographically remote from each other during the instruction. And what is a TVI or RB-based learning? So this uses the self-learning modules converted to RBI or radio-based instruction and television-based instruction or television instruction. So the learner could learn from watching from the television or listening to radio. And again, what is homeschooling? So homeschooling uses alternative delivery mode or ADM that aims to provide learners with equal access to quality basic education through home-based environment to be facilitated by qualified parents, guardians or tutors, or those who have undergone relevant training. And lastly, I repeat the meaning of blended learning. So this refers to a learning modality that allows for a combination of face-to-face and online distance learning, ODL, face-to-face and modular distance learning, MDL, face-to-face, RBI, and television-based learning. So all these learning delivery modality are very useful, but we must adhere to health protocols and proper assessment of learning modality to be used in our learning process. It is a great development that the Department of Education ordered the conduct of LESF, or Form for the Early Enrollment Assessment of Learners, which was answered by the parents to identify the learning delivery modality that they preferred or that they prefer to be used by their child. So fellow educators, let's continue being the frontliners of education. Let us work as one for our learners' safety and achievement. I know that we all have our own learning delivery modality in our school, so let us work for it better so we will succeed on its implementation. Always remember, fellow educators, that education is life, education is growth. It is a social process and a reconstruction of human experience, as John Dewey said. Thank you, stay safe, and God bless. Thank you for listening in this fourth wave free webinar session. Once again, I would like to remind everybody to register in APAETI using the link provided for every webinar session that you are going to join. Please listen, like, share, and subscribe, watch, and remember to answer the evaluation form in every webinar session to get your e-certificate. Thank you and good day.